Hello everybody, welcome to the bee yard. Today is July 25th, 2026, and I needed to do a hive inspection. The last inspection that I did, I found that I had a lot of queen cells and no active queen, little to no brood. So I'm gonna go do a relatively quick inspection. I did speed this one up just because, long videos. Anyways, so we're starting in the top box here right away, and I'm expecting to not find much of anything. I picked a random frame right out of the middle, and as you can see, there's nothing there. They have not drawn out any comb, hardly any bees up there, and, well, unfortunately, but that's to be expected because of the limited amount of eggs being laid due to the lack of having a queen. So I'm going to take this box off, set it out of the way, so that I can get right into the next box. And as you can see, that was super light. I got it out of the way, no problem. In this next box, what I am expecting to see is mostly capped over honey, maybe a little bit of brood. So we'll see what we find. And in this first frame, there's next to nothing. There's hardly any wax on it, and there's no bees. Second frame, we've got all capped over wax on the wax that is there, and on the clump that's on the other side, it was totally open, nothing in it, no nectar, no pollen, no bees. Well, that happens. Frame number 3, we've got a full frame, completely capped over on both sides. It was pretty heavy actually, and we got a significant amount of bees hanging out on it. Nothing crazy, but it's a good sign to see that they still have honey up in this top box. And you can see in the background, I do have my smoker going. I did not smoke the bees. From all the information that I found, the smoke doesn't bother them, but I find that using the smoke actually disrupts the hive itself, and with that disruption, it makes them a little bit more agitated. Not using the smoker, they stayed calm pretty much the entire time. Yeah, I had a couple fly up in my face, and they were on my suit like normal, but they weren't agitated, which is actually kind of interesting, especially seeing, because I was looking for a queen to see if they had one. I have not been able to find a queen. That previous frame, there was no brood on it, but as you can see on this frame that I've got in my hand right now, there is fresh brood, which means a queen was here. She did lay eggs that turned into larvae. They've been capped over. They're waiting to hatch. So my goal in this video is to find the queen. I have not had an active queen that I've been able to find all season. Not the last inspection, but the inspection before that, I had 15 queen cells in my beehive. I did not find a queen. And in this video, I do find more queen cells and did not find an active queen, but I did see a lot of brood. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with why the queens are having issues. But as you can see, there is a bunch of fresh brood here. If there was no queen, there would be no brood. But on the bottom of this frame, you saw it real quick, there was 2 queen cells. Both of them are capped off, waiting to be hatched. So now I have to wait another, 21 days or so before I have another active amount of brood. So we'll see what's going on. One thing, though, on the positive side that not having a queen does is that it will cut down on any kind of varroa mite issue that I might have, because there has been such a disruption to any kind of egg laying. The varroa mites are unable to hatch their larvae because their larvae aren't propagating with the bee larvae. So that's a bonus, which means I should go into the winter season with little to no varroa at all, because they just haven't been able to breed, which is a benefit for the lack of having any other benefit. And having limited brood and still not being able to find a queen. So if I remember correctly, while going through this hive, the only hive that I have at the moment, I did find a significant amount of money. There was a lot, no, honey. There was a fair amount of empty cells that did not have anything in them. No honey, no nectar, no pollen, no eggs. So I'm really not sure what's going on. At this point, I really don't know. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that going into the winter, I will have a queen so that my hive can make it through winter. I may end up having to feed them this year because they have a limited amount of food. As you'll see later on in the video, there's mainly only honey in this top box. There's a little bit in the bottom box, a little bit more brood in the bottom box, but there's only really that one top box, and then I feel that will not get them through the winter time. As I'm checking through this, if you guys watching this see a queen in the video, please let me know. Like I said, I found a bunch of queen cells. There was at least 4 in the top box, that the one that I'm currently inspecting. I believe there was just 3 or 4 in the bottom box. One of them was definitely not capped over, so they weren't ready to be fully matured, which means if one of the other egg queen cells does hatch, that queen will go around and destroy the queen cells. If 2 of them hatch at the same time, they'll duke it out, and that could potentially cause another issue where I might lose a queen again. I'm hoping, I'll keep my fingers crossed that doesn't happen, but now I have to not disrupt the hive for another 14, 21 days or so to make sure that the queen's hatched and she goes out, gets her mating done, comes back and starts to lay eggs. So maybe mid-September I will come back into the hive, check and see how it looks, see if I have an active queen, and if not, then unfortunately the hive's going to fail, because at this point I'm not going to be able to get a queen into this hive. I'm trying to do it all natural, let them make their own queen, which usually isn't an issue, but this late in the season it's going to be super difficult. And I think I misspoke saying that I would have to wait until September, but I'm probably going to be going back into this mid to late August, not September. I should definitely be in here before September. If you can see, I'm struggling in getting this box off. That box was actually a lot heavier than I expected it to be. Now this is where I would expect to see, if I have an active queen, a lot of brood, eggs, and a whole bunch of just fresh larvae, and I did not find that. I found that side completely empty. There's honey on the other side, and that's what I'm finding. I'm finding a lot of empty cells with nothing in them. Nothing at all. No eggs, no honey, no nectar, no pollen, no larvae. But there's a bunch of bees running around, and I did have a couple of frames that had fresh brood on it, which signifies that there was a queen who was laying eggs. So why I was unable to locate her, I'm not sure. Why they're making more queen cells, I'm not sure. It doesn't make sense. I'm kind of stumped at this point, but the colony itself seems to be doing fairly well. As you can see, there's quite a bit of honey still. There's a lot of drones in the hive, which are just the males that are really just going to eat honey. They're not really doing anything else. But there's a decent amount of brood, which means that I had a queen not that long ago. Within the last 7 to 8 days, I think it is, for the larva to get strong enough for them to be able to cap it over. So within the last week and a half or so, I should have had a queen in there, and why I was unable to find her doesn't make any sense. But you can see, I mean, there's definitely a lot of bees in there. Some of them look like they were newer, I should say. They looked younger. And then there's some older ones, but you can see that's some good. That's a really strong brood pattern. A really strong brood pattern. I mean, it's almost completely all full, all right next to itself, which signifies that a queen laid eggs. So, why they're making more queen cells, I'm kind of stumped. Doesn't really make sense. They have enough room. They shouldn't need to swarm at all. But they got an entire box on top that they haven't even touched that they can go up into if they needed to expand. So, yeah, and like I said, I'm trying to do something different with this video. Doing a voiceover instead of doing my usual talking throughout the inspection. I noticed that it actually helped the bees stay calmer without making any excess noise, myself staying calm. My voice wasn't bothering them. You can see that there's little to no activity of the bees flying up into my face. And as I put the box back together in a few minutes, you'll see a process of me still actively trying to find the queen, locate the queen, and with the disruption that I caused, there still wasn't any severe activity with the bees being super aggressive, which typically, if there's no queen, the bees will be a little bit more aggressive because they're not sure what's going on. So I didn't find her. Maybe she's just hiding really well, or because they know that they have another queen coming. I really don't know at this point. This is the first time that I've had a season where every inspection I was unable to locate a queen. And you can see on that frame there's a lot of empty space. There was still some, I believe there was still some brood in there, but not a whole significant amount. Yeah, and it's a solid brood pattern. I mean, there's little to no gaps in between any of the brood that actually was laid, which is a good sign. It means that the queen, when she did lay eggs, was laying really well. But why there was no fresh eggs, no larvae, it kind of doesn't make any sense. But we're going to continue to watch the hive and see what's going on. Like I said, I'm going to wait probably at least 2 weeks before I go back into this. So that will make it just after the 14th of August, somewhere around there, to give the queen time to hatch, establish herself, go out on her mating flight, and possibly start laying eggs, because those queen cells should hatch within the next 4 or 5 days, I would imagine, and then it would take another 3 or 4 days for her to get established, get her pheromone around, go out for her mating flight, come back, and another probably 3 or 4 days before she really starts laying really well. She's got plenty of space to lay. There's a lot of empty cells in there for her to lay eggs, so that's not going to be an issue when there finally is a queen in here. Now, this is where I would expect the hive to get really irritated and super aggressive if there was no queen in here, because I'm literally shaking them out of the hive onto the cover to see if maybe I just missed her. But even with this disruption and displacement of not being on the frames and just being close to the hive, there was little to no aggression at all. I did have 1 or 2 accidentally get stuck in my glove, but even with that, there was no excess aggression towards me. it was complete accidents, and because I let them just kind of hang out, try to extract themselves, I think that actually helped out with keeping the aggression down. You'll notice when I actually, after I get all the frames back in, that I try to scoop some of the bees up out of the cover so I can kind of get a better look, see if I find a queen there. And that's when the bees get stuck in the glove. But the way I reacted to it, I think also helped, because I didn't get freaked out that there was a bee there. The bees didn't get freaked out that one or two of them had gotten their stingers stuck. It was really just an accident. But it's weird too, something that I noticed during my inspection and rewatching the video before I started doing the voiceover, that the bees on the cover didn't look like they were trying to congregate around a queen. I didn't find any activity of them trying to actively find the queen on the cover. They all were just kind of migrating towards the entrance to get back into the hive, which seems normal, which kind of leads to me that there would be a queen in there. There's a possibility maybe another queen emerged and they fought, and a virgin won. She was out on her mating flight, and that's why I didn't find her in this video, which is highly possible. I mean, it's not uncommon to have a virgin queen go out in a mating flight and go into a hive and not be able to find her because she's not there. So I guess I'm going to find out in a couple of weeks whether or not I truly have a queen or not. This has been a unique summer because, like I said, every time I've gone into my hive, I have been unsuccessful in finding a queen. Little to no evidence of any queen, actually. There was a little bit of brood and a bunch of queen cells, and then I still wasn't able to find anything. Didn't even find any brood the last time I went in. Now I've got brood and a couple of more queen cells, but still no queen. So I'm really confused as to what is actually going on. And this is where I'm trying to get a closer inspection, just picking up little clumps of the bees and just making sure that I didn't miss her in the cover at all. I did get a fair amount back into the hive this way, very carefully. I mean, you don't want to scoop them up and be super aggressive towards them. Dropping them down on the hive like I am doesn't really bother them too much. And you notice with my right hand how I'm not using it. It's because I noticed in between my middle finger and my ring finger, one of the bees actually did get her stinger stuck. So I wanted to see if she'd be able to work it out on her own. I know it's possible that if they are given enough time, they may be able to wiggle themselves out. I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to hurt her any more than she already was. Didn't want to aggravate and cause the attack pheromone to be set off, so I kind of just left her alone, see what happened. And near the end of the video, I don't know if she managed to get out or if she broke off, but she wasn't on my glove anymore. And with all these scoops, I still didn't find a queen, unfortunately. So I ended up just picking up the cover and knocking the rest of the bees back into the hive and putting everything back together and closing it up. Kind of disappointed that I didn't find a queen, but kind of excited that I do have some brood, got a couple more queen cells, so we'll actually see how things go. Like I said, I'll check in a couple of weeks, see what's going on. And before I forget, thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate the support. And any tips and tricks that anybody might want to share, feel free. If you got questions, I'll try to answer them as best as I possibly can. Something I didn't mention, if you noticed in the beginning of the video, and you kind of zoom in down on the bottom towards the right corner of the bottom box and the right side in the front between the box that I'm putting on now and the bottom box, there was a lot of propolis. There had been some damage done to the bottom box last season, or not last season, the season before last, and the bees are trying to close it up. They propolized and allowed almost like tunnel gap in the bottom right of the bottom box, and then they actually did make a tunnel gap in that gap that's in between the middle box and the bottom box, which I think is pretty interesting. But the propolis actually helps to keep out infection and other microorganisms and whatnot. It's kind of their defense mechanism. But we're near the end of the video, so thanks guys.